south, where warmer Halloweens are the norm, temps could reach into the 90s. The Midwest and Northeast will see cooler temperatures by Friday, but the South, that area will stay hot into the weekend. A lack of food and humanitarian aid entering Gaza will likely have catastrophic consequences as winter now approaches. That's according to the United Nations World Food Program, which today said 90% of Gazans right there in the enclave are expected to be food insecure by the month of November. It comes as Israel's parliament defied international criticism to pass laws banning the UN Relief Agency for Palestinians from operating, a move the State Department says could have devastating consequences for millions who depend on the aid.
They play a role right now that at least today cannot be filled by anyone else. They are a key partner in delivering food, water, and other humanitarian assistance to civilians in Gaza that wouldn't have anyone else to get it from if UNRWA were to go away.
Israel has long sought to dismantle UNRWA with claims that its employees are affiliated with Hamas, something the UN argues there isn't sufficient proof of. Meantime, in Lebanon, a new Hezbollah leader named. The Lebanese militant group says Sheikh Naim Qassem will succeed longtime leader Hassan Nasrallah. Nasrallah was killed in an Israeli airstrike last month. Qassem has said Hezbollah will keep fighting Israel despite setbacks. Israel has hinted he may not be a leader for long, suggesting he will be a new target. Ceasefire hostage talks will continue in the coming days, though no breakthrough reportedly expected as NPR reports Israel is awaiting the results of the U.S. presidential election before moving forward on any proposal. Well, McDonald's U.S. sales have improved recently. The company saying today its sales at stores open a year or more increased by 0.3% in the third quarter. $5 value meals launched in June helped sales bounce back after a weak second quarter. But the recent deadly E. coli outbreak linked to Quarter Pounders could hurt the company in the final quarter of the year. No more airline vouchers if your flight has been significantly delayed or canceled. A new federal rule is now in effect where airlines must now give passengers cash refunds. Customers are also in line for money back if their baggage is late by more than 12 hours on domestic flights or 15 to 30 on international flights, depending on the length of travel. And also, a refund is required if a service like Wi-Fi is purchased, but the service was not provided. Well, nearly $3 billion in new grants going toward improving and electrifying port infrastructure at 55 sites nationwide. The White House says this will support roughly 40,000 union jobs and slash more than 3 million metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions. President Biden unveiled the new investments in Baltimore today, calling ports the linchpin to America's supply chain.
But for too long, they've run on fossil fuels and aging infrastructure, putting workers at risk and exposing nearby communities to dangerous pollution.
Officials say the grants will also reduce diesel air pollution in cities with major ports. Well, Vice President Kamala Harris is about to deliver what her campaign says is her closing argument. She's about to take the stage at the Ellipse in Washington, D.C., right near the White House. And that's where we find National News Desk correspondent Atra El-Nashar. And Atra, we are now 7 days away from the finish line. It's hard to believe we're finally here. Tens of millions of Americans have already voted. They've done the early voting. So what do we know about who Harris really hopes to persuade tonight and how she plans to do it?
Yeah, good evening, Amir. Good to be with you. So remember, when Kamala Harris suddenly became the Democratic presidential nominee, she said it is her job to prosecute the political case against former President Trump. She's a former attorney general, after all. So she knows in these last 7 days, it is all about the undecided voters, not the folks here tonight, not the people wearing her T-shirts and her buttons in deep blue District of Columbia, but the folks in those critical 7 battleground states who still have not made up their minds. And the campaign acknowledges there are still plenty of them, people who perhaps are lifelong Republicans but can't necessarily bring themselves to vote for Harris, and they're not supporting Trump. And then there's those folks who just don't know a lot about her. Remember, this campaign is only 3 months old. Yes, she was next vice president. But there's still a lot of folks who just don't feel familiar enough at this point. But this entire campaign has been a sprint to the finish line. So in these last 7 days, we're going to be seeing more of the same. She's going to be blitzing the battleground states after tonight. But tonight she is going to lay out what she believes is a contrast between her and former President Trump. She's going to ask viewers and the crowd here today, of which there's at least 40,000 people, I'm told, but she's going to ask them to imagine two different visions of the future, her in the Oval Office and former President Trump in the Oval Office once again. But the campaign knows it is going to be close. Earlier this morning, Jen O'Malley-Dillon, the campaign manager, said this is a margin of error race.
Yeah, it is extremely tight, and every vote matters, that's for sure, and she's vying for them. We see she's attracted a big crowd. We can see it right behind you. But we do know one person who is not there is President Biden. Do we know why he's not expected to attend?
Yeah, earlier today, actually, fittingly at an ice cream shop, he was asked by reporters if he's going to watch. He said yes, and they said, "Why aren't you going to be there tonight?" And he says, "It's for her. It's her night." I can see the White House from where I'm standing. He's in there. He's going to be in there when she's speaking, but he is stepping aside, letting her have her moment. But also, this is a strategic move for the campaign, for the president. He knows that there's a reason he was booted out from the ticket, and she's trying to separate herself and show voters that she can be a new way forward and not more of the same.
There will be a lot of eyes watching tonight, that is for sure. Atra Al-Nashar reporting for us from Washington, D.C., from a very lively, soon-to-be rally with Vice President Kamala Harris. Thank you so much for that. And with Election Day just 7 days away, here at the National Desk, we're going to be beginning special Election Night coverage next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, going through the night with live reactions from both the Harris and Trump campaign headquarters, as well as reactions from congressional races around the country. We've got a lot to get through that evening, and we hope you'll join us next Tuesday, both on air and online at thenationaldesk.com. And coming up, a big change in how Americans feel about the economy lately, plus why analysts say the job market is getting weaker. Then cancer takes a toll on more than just someone's health. The eye-opening new research about the financial burden impacting patients. And later, how your children's personal data is getting bought and sold without you knowing. We're back in just 90 seconds. Americans are feeling a whole lot better about the economy. That's according to the latest numbers from the Conference Board. The Consumer Confidence Index jumped from 99.2 in September to 100.7 in October, the biggest monthly increase we have seen in almost 4 years. The index measures people's current views about the economy and their 6-month outlook. On the other hand, Americans seem less confident about their ability to find a new job. Today, the Labor Department said the number of people quitting their jobs last month dropped under 3.1 million, the lowest we've seen since 2020. Available jobs also fell by 500,000 from August, and more people got laid off. Economists say this weaker job market is still stable. North Korea says its top diplomat is visiting Russia. South Korean officials say the trip may be to negotiate on sending more troops to Russia. The Pentagon says North Korea has sent about 10,000 troops there. The head of NATO says President Putin cannot sustain the war without foreign support.
The deployment of North Korean troops to Kursk is also a sign of Putin's growing desperation. Over 600,000 Russian soldiers have been killed or wounded in Putin's war.
There are concerns that Russia may offer North Korea technology to benefit its nuclear weapons and missile program in exchange for those soldiers. The Washington Post has lost tens of thousands of subscribers after choosing not to endorse a presidential candidate. More than 200,000 people have unsubscribed from the paper in the past few days. 3 members of the editorial board also stepped down. Washington Post owner billionaire Jeff Bezos is taking heat for that decision, but defended the paper, saying it was principled and the right thing to do. Do you have a fever, sore throat, or cough that's lasted several weeks? It could be a case of walking pneumonia, which hospitals and medical offices now say there is a troubling rise in. And the increase in diagnoses is the highest we've seen in quite a while in terms of affecting young children. That's according to the CDC. The CDC saying walking pneumonia cases are common. Almost 2 million people are infected every year, but infection rates for minors in particular is up just under 7%. Typically, the virus can clear up with a course of medication, but in rare cases, it can cause serious complications. And more people have been opting out of organ donation programs following a recent report. In a recent congressional hearing, a 2021 case came to light involving accusations that a Kentucky man's organs were almost taken out after he was mistakenly declared dead. Now, according to Donate Life America, on average, 170 people have removed their names daily from the National Donor Registry, 10 times more than last year. And in your health report tonight, new research shedding light on the high cost of a cancer diagnosis. Medical reporter Liz Bonis shares how it's linked to lower credit scores and bankruptcy.
Hey there, everybody. These findings really show that a diagnosis of a potentially long-term illness such as cancer takes a toll on more than a patient's health.
I've had a little bit of a setback with one of my incisions healing.
For more than a year, we've been following Krista Power's breast cancer battle. She's now healing from reconstruction surgery. After chemotherapy and other treatments, she is now cancer-free. But she says being sick is expensive. She is self-employed.
I realized I had to surrender my clients and my business contracts and, working with chambers of commerce and that sort of thing. So it was this, in the midst of dealing with breast cancer and the physicality of it, it was this mental and financial hit of just being terrified.
Her fear comes from what this new research on cancer and its financial challenges shows. 2 studies comparing those living with cancer to those without now show those with the illness have lower credit scores and greater risk for financial bankruptcy. In some cases, those credit scores averaged 80 points lower than those without this long-term illness.
If people have, let's say, credit card bills or a mortgage payment and they don't pay them, that's going to affect their credit.
Olivia Smith is an attorney who specializes in elder law and Medicaid planning. She says the only real way to avoid this financial toxicity if you get ill is to plan for it.
I think thinking about it, potentially looking at what your disability insurance is, either through your employer or looking at a disability policy on your own, you can get those.
If you don't have those and you are sick, Olivia suggests you see if your healthcare system has a medical financial assistance program and ask them to refer you to local financial resources for cancer patients. Krista says she got lucky in her journey. Friends and family helped her through a GoFundMe account, but she also did find,
because there are resources out there for sure, for breast cancer especially.
healthcare providers conducting this research say this simply shows all of us that financial support needs to be part of patient care combined with medical intervention. With your health news, I'm Liz Bonus reporting.
Liz, thanks for that report. Coming up, how an ICU nurse's training helped her save her own life when she suffered a brain aneurysm. We'll be right back. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter most to you. We're taking the pulse of America, and we begin with a string of attacks on women in the Nashville area.
The tragic murder of Alyssa Lockett while simply out exercising on a local greenway has ignited widespread outrage and a plea for action by local leaders.
Contrary to what people are saying, we are not safer today than we were 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Ken Alexandro, former MMPD officer with over 20 years of service, speaks out after Fox 17 News learned the suspect, Paul Park, has a history of violent crime. In August, 4 women, complete strangers, were brutally attacked on separate occasions by 2 men with extensive criminal records.
Nurse Julie Knickel has spent countless hours on the ICU floor caring for patients. But earlier this year, she found herself on that same floor in desperate need of help.
I woke up February 2nd, 3 a.m., and I had the worst headache. It was terrible.
Julie was treated by someone she typically works alongside, Dr. Brian Snelling, the director of the stroke program at the Marcus Neuroscience Institute. Julie had a small brain aneurysm that had ruptured. Thankfully, her years of training helped her spot the signs that something serious was going on.
We don't know for sure how Ball State, Robert Morris University, and Kent State got my son's info, but the mail came in right after he took the PSAT, a college entrance exam. The exam is administered through a nonprofit called the College Board that also administers the SAT and your students' advanced placement exams.
How is this information getting sold?
Many organizations such as the College Board sell student data, including student test scores, without parental consent and make many millions of dollars a year off the sale of this data.
When we presented a sales document we obtained listing the types of data organizations can buy for up to $540,000, the spokesperson acknowledged the College Board does provide higher education members access to information if students opt in.
But coming up, Game 4 of the World Series begins tonight. The odds at play as the Yankees fight to stay alive against the Dodgers when we come back. The Los Angeles Dodgers now one win away from winning the World Series. Game 4 is tonight, and the Dodgers have won the first 3 games. The Yankees must win tonight to have any chance at the championship. The Yankees are now fighting baseball history to stay alive because no team has ever come back from a 3-0 deficit in the World Series. But it is not impossible. As Yankees fans know, the 2004 Red Sox won 4 in a row as the only baseball team to do it in the postseason, down 3-0, and they beat the Yankees in the ALCS to do it 20 years ago. And that does it for this edition of the National News Desk. Thank you so much for joining us. Join us again for more coverage of America's top stories this evening. Good night.